Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. With me today is Lucia Byrne from Donegal and her fiance, Chris. They actually have started a business called Clinic Notes AI. Lucia is a podiatrist, and Chris is a software engineer. And this is my third attempt of doing this introduction, and I think I have nailed it. So welcome to the podcast. I'm waiting. I should put some cheering music in the background. So how are you doing today?
Doing really well, thanks. We're enjoying a bit of winter sun in Tenerife, so it's good.
I know I said that when we jumped on the video. I looked in the background and went, it doesn't look like Ireland. And it's not. You're in Spain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So is this a holiday? Is this something you do every year? Or was this just the weather was really bad? You go, we just got to get away.
Honestly, last year I had January blues and I booked this in January.
Oh, okay.
So because it's a big thing in Ireland, people go away for winter sun is what they call it. It's just to stop the depression people get when the weather changes.
Yeah, where I am, it's either hot or it's hot and wet. It's pretty much nice all year round. During winter, it's fantastic. Summer, it can get too hot. Where you are now in Spain, what's the temperature there?
About 26, 27 degrees every day. Back in Ireland, snowing and freezing heavy.
Well, I'm sure you're dying to get back to Ireland.
Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you'll get back to work, and then January, you'll have the January blues again, and you'll be booking another trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, Lucia, you worked in the HSC, which I just asked is similar to the NHS.
Yes, I did.
Is
Yeah,
that what you did when you graduated?
No, I actually worked in private practice for 3 years and then got a senior post within the HSE that required a bit more experience than a post-grad. Worked there for a few years then, specialized in chronic wounds and managing the diabetic foot. And then back in April 22, set up my own podiatry clinic called
Stride Foot and Ankle Clinic.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to go from private practice into the HSC, which would be probably more as a government position? Was it
Yeah.
money?
There was a few factors. Money definitely wasn't the first. The HSE focused primarily on wounds. Wounds are a massive issue in Ireland as they are everywhere else. And I missed MSK. I really missed MSK.
Yeah.
I studied podiatry mainly because I like MSK. I always played football growing up and crazy into sports at the minute. So I missed that. We set up first and it was like my bit on the side. And I always say I created a monster. So
That
it kind of
happens.
forced me. Yeah, it forced me out. I was working at the beginning. I was working like 9 to 9, but probably 8:30 realistically in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, just trying to juggle both. And then it came to the stage where I said I had to pick one or the other. And Stride Foot and Ankle Clinic was definitely my favorite. So yeah.
And that's been going along pretty well. So you've had that, would you say it's September 22, was it?
1st of April Fool's Day, believe it or not.
April Fool's Day. So you opened the
22.
clinic up on
Yeah.
April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
So that was a good start.
Yeah.
So it's been 2.5 years.
Yeah, and we have 5 podiatrists, including myself now. So it's really taken off. Yeah.
Okay. And is it easy getting a podiatrist in Ireland?
Absolutely not. One of our biggest challenge.
That is, is it because the weather's so good during winter?
Yeah, everybody's over in Tenerife.
Yeah, they only work 6 months of the year. No,
So are most of the podiatrists in Ireland, are they graduating and then heading to the UK, or are they going overseas? What are they doing?
I would say a good few are going overseas. Australia,
Yeah.
definitely there's over there.
Yeah.
And the UK as well.
A lot go into the HSE for the security. You've holidays and for females, you've maternity leave, and there's a lot of pros, less admin work in the HSE. Yourself setting up a business, there's a lot of admin that would turn people off setting up a business. So yeah,
it is like I look at private practice and where some people are just not suited to it. I think some people are mentally designed to work at a university or work for the government or some form of position, community health position, because that's what they're going to be best suited to. And there's some people that go into private practice who probably shouldn't. They should actually work for somebody else. And then there's other people like myself. I was just cut out for it. I love the admin behind it, the creating the business, the marketing. I just absolutely thrived on it. Never got tired. Could do it all day.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same. I feel it's very fun. Don't like doing expenses at the end of the month, but everything other than that, I find it quite fun.
Oh, yeah, I hated paying bills. Yeah, that part I did. I loved putting the money in the bank account, but I really didn't like seeing the money coming out of the bank account. And I know when you first start, I hated it when you ran out of money before you ran out of month. You'd sort of go, oh, I've got nothing left. Still got bills to pay. You're seeing them piling up there a little bit. You go, it's a little bit panicky. But the good part is when you get through all that in the end, and then as each month grows and as each year passes and it gets better, yeah, I think private practice is fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so happy that we took the leap and went into private practice. It's given me so much freedom and ability to explore different areas of podiatry, which is really fun as well.
So, Chris, you should say hello because you're sitting there quietly.
Yeah, hi, how's it going?
Yeah, you're being very patient, sitting there in the background. So your background, you're a software engineer.
Yeah.
And I take it, did Lucia come to you and go, "Oh, it's taking notes is bugging the hell out of me? Or did you see her taking notes and go, a light bulb went off and went, I'm a brilliant man. I think I can come up with something that will help you out in your clinic.
Yeah, it was a version of the second one. So I've seen Lucia struggle with notes first since we opened Stride. When I say struggle, I mean it took her so long and took all of our staff so long. And it was also a stress. At the end of the day, Lucia would be stressed that she didn't have all her notes complete or whatever. So then she might have to go the next day and finish her notes. And also the quality of notes wouldn't have been fantastic. Like the level of detail and wouldn't have been great. So I just thought there has to be a better way of doing this. Discussed it with Lucia. Lucia said that's a brilliant idea. We looked at what was out in the market at the time, and we tried out a lot of different softwares, and we said, how can we do this better? So we use Clinico in our clinic, and
Yeah.
the way that we thought it would better initially, at least, was to properly integrate with Clinico. So a lot of the softwares do say that they integrate with Clinico, and they do, as in they'll pull down a list of your patients, but you then have to copy your notes over from the software to Clinico. And then Lucia, I wouldn't say you're a technophobe, Lucia, but Lucia.
Oh, you could call her that if you want.
Yeah, this has been recorded, so she can't do anything to me.
Yeah, but it's not a bad thing because it is one of those things. Some people, technology they just don't. At least I don't like ulcers on people's feet. Someone has an ulcer, I want a dry reach. And I know other people, when they think of technology and changes, they want a dry reach. It just doesn't agree with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something we've seen with lots of podiatrists now. We're fortunate that a good few podiatrists are using the software at the moment. And I've seen that time and time again, that podiatrists are very much people. They're not like me. They're not a nerd. They don't like IT. So we try to make it as simple as possible. You generate your notes, you click a button, and it's already in your clinic. So it's really foolproof.
So it's working, same thing where it's recording and listening to the conversation, or are you having to prompt it in certain ways?
So people use it in two different ways. Some people use it where they will record the whole consultation between the podiatrist and their patient.
Yeah.
And it is recording the audio all the time. And then other people use it as a summary tool. So they will see the patient, and then after the patient leaves, they'll just give a couple of lines like Chris was here today with pain in his ankle or whatever it was, and give a quick description of the consultation, and it will then generate notes. So you can ask it to generate notes in any format you want. So you give it like a broad outline if you want a SOAP or whatever format you want of notes. You tell it that beforehand, and then it will generate your notes in that format.
Okay. And when you design this thing, it's gonna sound weird, but I don't know if other people are thinking this. Irish people are sometimes hard to understand. But I manage. I've got a lot of Irish friends, so I manage with it. There's a few people at the gym who are from Ireland, so I get that. Scottish people are almost impossible to understand, especially when they really go off. How does it's fun with accents?
So I would say Irish people probably are hard to understand on an international level.
Yeah.
Within Ireland, there are levels to that game. Like Donegal people, like Lucia, they're incredibly hard to understand. Like when I'm at Lucia's family's house, most of the time I'm smiling and nodding, and I just haven't a clue what
Yeah,
anybody's
I can
saying.
understand you perfectly. Yeah, well, so Lucia was
Yeah,
a bit difficult. No, I'm
yeah,
just
yeah,
joking.
yeah. Yeah, so then it's the two extremes of the country. There's the north of the country, like Donegal, and then down the south in Cork and Kerry, they have very thick accents as well. So the short answer really is just that I was amazed when I created it first that it picked up anything Lucia said. It's like, oh my God, this is mad. So
Okay.
then through testing and just continually improving, it's got really good at picking up accents. So we have mostly podiatrists from Ireland, but we also have a few podiatrists from the UK as well, and one or two from Scotland. And so far, no issues. I
Haven't
don't have any
tested out
Aussies.
No Australians yet. Because
Yeah.
I've had a couple of word recognition programs that I've been using. And yeah, sometimes even the program I mentioned to you that I edit the podcast on, the videos, Descript, the more I'm using it, the better it's getting at understanding me. I don't know if the program is just changing itself in the background because of me, or the people who are writing the program are adapting it, knowing that it needs to be changed. But sometimes I say things on there and I'm like, really? That's really what you thought I said? And then
Yeah.
I listen back to it and I go, you know what? Okay, I get it. I get it. I get it why you think I said that, but in the context of how I've said it, why would I say hippopotamus just out of the blue?
Yeah, yeah. So that was one of the things that I learned early on with the software. It's specifically trained. It's our catchphrase at this stage is built for podiatrists by podiatrists. So it listens to you, but it takes everything. It knows that it's listening to a podiatric consultation. So if sometimes there would be a bit of ambiguity between the words, it could be this or the other. It will 9 times out of 10, I would say, it picks up the correct word because it knows that it's something to do with podiatry. It's also really good at excluding everything else. And that was something that was kind of challenging. Lucia, being from Donegal, Donegal people are famous for chatting. I suppose Irish people in general probably are. So like a lot of Lucia's routine treatments, particularly, well, you can speak more to this, but Lucia would do a lot of chatting about the weather and not so much politics.
So it knows to, as you're talking about potatoes and things like that, it will just
yeah,
automatically just take that out.
yeah.
Yeah, no chit chat.
No chit chat. And saying that, some people, I've had a few people request that it keeps one personal fact about a patient. Some people like to
Okay.
have that. So you can do that. You can tell it to, you can have literally a heading that says personal fact, and it can pick up one personal fact for you.
Could be about their dog's name, Sally, and it's a
Yeah.
black Labrador.
Yeah.
It's nice touch.
I think that's a great idea because we used to do it even when we were doing handwritten notes. We'd always say in every consultation, whatever they've told you, something personal, it could be their son's trying to get into medicine or to do pharmacy, just note that down. So the next time you see him, go, hey, by the way, did Steve get into medicine?
Yeah.
And they
Yeah,
might
it's
know that
lovely.
you've written it down, but the thing is, it's a conversation piece for the next time that they actually come in.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
lovely. Yeah, it's
So did
very
you
nice to
go
have
to
that.
Clinico to integrate it with Clinico? Did you have to work with them to make that side of things work?
No, so Clinical have a publicly available API. An API is just a way that two softwares can speak with each other. So they're just use their documentation. I kind of reverse engineered it using Clinical. And yeah, it was fun.
So, Lucia, how have you found it going from
Um,
handwritten notes to now using Clinic Notes AI?
well, it's just changed my life. So when I sit down with a patient, I actually feel more present with the patient because a lot of the time, patient comes in, I'm grabbing their subjective pain scales, how they've been, what they've done, what's working well. For example, for a biomechanical assessment, now it's just me and the patient. So it's made my clinical time so much easier. And it's given me great certainty that my notes are going to be there. Pain scales, range of motion tests, pain on palpation tests, everything's going to be there. And it systemizes things and treatment notes for the rest of the clinic as well. So we all have the exact same way we do our clinic notes, and AI has just made that so much easier.
When you're with your patient, do you go through a certain format? Do you talk in a certain order, or does it put the notes in a certain order, regardless of when you actually mention it?
It puts the notes in a certain order, so it generates everything for you. There will be
Okay.
sometimes you look back and it could be a word or it mightn't pick up the odd thing, but no, 9 times out of 10, it's all there.
Okay. Then what you're saying is, so if you've got 5 podiatrists working there and then you're reading their notes, it's all going to be in that same flow. You're not going to have
Yeah.
one lunatic doing some crazy stuff over here and then somebody else doing something else. And you don't have to read bad handwriting, I suppose, or poor typing, bad English. I take it that makes it a
Yeah.
lot easier.
Yeah, it really has. It's made life so much easier. And it's easier for, we have a new grad that has just come out of the University of Galway, and her life is so easy. When, as a new grad, you're very particular about your treatment notes and making sure everything's right. Like at the end of the day, we used to spend 5-10 minutes per patient, just making sure everything's down and like everything's there, treatment is perfect. And now it's just about 1 or 2 minutes per patient.
Okay, I just want to jump in here quickly and just let everyone know too that Chris and Lucia have an offer for everybody who listens to the Podiatry Legends podcast. They have set up a page. All you do is go to clinicnotesai.com/legends. And when you go there, you'll get a 30-day free trial plus 50% off the first 2 months if you decide to subscribe after that. So just go to clinicnotesai.com/legends. Okay, let's get back on with this interview.
And you have that sense of, okay, that patient is done. I didn't miss anything. You
Yeah.
could be lying in bed sometimes and you'd be like, oh, I wonder, did I record that? So it's cut out all of that.
And how have your patients taken on? Because you would have had the clinic without using this software. Now you have the software there. Did the patients feel uneasy about the recording, or were they like, this is fantastic? What was their reaction?
Honestly, I was a bit apprehensive at the beginning, because we have to get consent from every patient. We have to
Yeah.
sit down and say, look, so hi Bridie, I'm using a new software today and it helps me with my treatment notes. Is it okay if we record this conversation? I've never had anybody question me on it. No, not one patient. Which
Yeah,
is
I don't think you would. Actually, I also think it'd probably make the patient behave more. You know, like if a patient was going to come in and say, I'm going to give you what for, if they know it's being recorded, then maybe that will make them, I need to be a little bit more careful about what I say as well. It's no different to when I'm doing the podcast. And even though I have the editing button, I can do what I want. But I find, some of the things when I'm talking with a guest before I press record and when I press record, sometimes we have some different conversations.
yeah.
I think everyone behaves better.
Yeah. I think an important thing to note is in our clinic, the feedback that we've received from Lucia and from the other podiatrists is that nobody has batted an eyelid, nobody cares.
Yeah.
That could be peculiar to Donegal, like they're very laid back. But in other clinics, there has been the odd person that's been worried about what happens with the recording.
Yeah, what does happen with the recording? What's the process there?
Yeah, so one of the kind of early on design decisions that we both made was to delete the recording as soon as the note was created, which is not something that's done. Or some of the softwares, I found it hard to figure out what they do with the recording or how long they hold on to it for.
Yeah.
And we decided, just for transparency's sake and to make everybody feel more comfortable, as soon as the note is created, we delete the recording. We don't hold on to it. Now, there probably is a use case down the line where you might like to keep the recording. Some people have said to me that they would like to keep the recording, but for now, we feel like that's kind of the most transparent and most fair way of dealing with the recording. So that alleviates some of the worries that patients may have about their data.
Yeah, I suppose it could be one of those things, the button that at the end of a consultation you put keep recording, not keep recording. So that if something was said that whether it was inappropriate or it was something that you really had, did the notes really capture what happened here? Because the patient might say they had a complaint about something. You want to really make sure there's a record of this, that you could keep that recording. And whether it's kept for a couple of months,
Yeah, I guess it's something we could think about. I think just for us, we just feel better not having a record. I personally feel better about not having a load of recordings.
I would much rather not have a recording of some of the things I used to talk about with my patients. Yeah, I'd rather be gone. But I suppose accuracy wise, with what you're doing with like the Clinic Notes AI, is definitely going to be better than someone sitting there writing it by hand, because it's so easy where the patients are talking and you're trying to listen to them at the same time you're trying to document,
Yeah.
and you miss things. It's no different to when you're at a lecture and someone's talking
Yeah.
and you're trying to take notes, and while you're writing something that was important, they're still talking, and then you have to say to somebody else, oh, what did they say there? And they tell you. You don't have that option when you're with a patient.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny, actually, the feedback that we received early on was that the notes were too detailed. So I had to create templates that would
This
make
feedback
sure.
from Lucia.
This is feedback from other, not from Lucia so much. No, Lucia, I think, was the most encouraging out of all of the clinicians that used it in the beginning. But since then, some of the feedback was that the notes were too detailed and so that they were too long. And people found it difficult, like a patient is waiting for you, they're trying to see what happened during the last consultation. So we had to do a little bit of work to give people the option to make the notes very long and very detailed,
Yeah.
or very brief, but also still capture all the important data. So
now to prevent that from happening again, Chris asks the client who for a template of their previous notes, and then he would use the AI to match whatever they've previously done. Because some people like really detailed notes, other times people like bullet points.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was going to say, can you give it a word count limit?
yeah, you can. And you give it a template, you can make as many templates as you like.
Yeah.
So some people have a different template for MSK, like nail surgery, verruca treatment or something. So generally I'll jump on a call with people when they sign up, and I'll give them the templates that we already have and that we've worked on. And if they want to make their own templates, I always give them a hand doing that. It should create notes very close to what you're used to once you give the right instructions.
I know when I've used ChatGTP and I will take a recording, like the recording that we're doing today, I will grab that and I'll go and dump it in the chat, and I'll ask it to help create show notes for me. And I've found it's probably usually about 80% or maybe 90% accurate. Every now and then, 10%, it takes different facts, puts things together, snorts some coke, and then just pumps out some really weird stuff. So does that
Yeah.
ever happen? Which say you have to still look at the notes, especially when the biggest things I've found with Chat GTP, for example, would be it might take a figure or a statistic that the person's mentioned here, then it'll take another one, and it sometimes does some weird things with it. And
Yeah.
it
That can always
interprets
happen.
something completely wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. There are AI hallucinations, they call them. So that like basically AI, it's
Yeah.
exactly what you said. It's like
Snort.
yeah.
You wonder, you go, yeah, I'll do all this for you. It runs through it and goes, hang on a sec. It takes a big snort and then it puts it, and you go, what were you doing? That made no sense.
I hadn't really thought about it like that before, but that's a really nice way of describing it. Yeah, the thing we always say about using any sort of AI for helping you with your note taking, well, first of all, you should never use ChatGPT for anything that's private,
Oh, yeah.
anything that obviously. But aside from that, we would say that this tool will save you lots of time, but it doesn't replace. You don't. It doesn't mean that you never have to think about your notes again. You absolutely do. You should always read the notes, and you should always make little edits where they're needed. I think that's just a good practice, anyways. I think it would be not a great world if the AI was just going off on its own and people weren't checking it.
Yeah,
So.
it's interesting what you say there about chat too, about private information or about patients, especially, is because I was at a conference in October in Arizona, and a lot of what we were doing, we were messing around with different prompts, and we were using chat just as an example. One of the other guys was talking into his phone on chat, so I just put my phone near his. I thought, just saves me having to say it. I'll just get him to do it. So it was his voice going to both our phones. We both used chat, and it gave us two completely different responses based on his profession, knowing that he is a seventh Dan grandmaster in martial arts, and knowing I would have a podiatry background. So he'd already
Yeah.
had fed off of other stuff. It now probably thinks I'm American because he was American because of his
Yeah,
voice.
yeah.
But it was just interesting. Same prompt, completely different answers based on what it already knew about us and how we'd used it in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's trading on your data all the time. And that's the
Mm.
real big one. That's the reason I think a lot of podiatrists in particular mightn't think of that sometimes when they're using AI. Like it's totally fine to use it for kind of the use case that you described there, taking notes of what we say.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine for marketing. It's brilliant for that. But you absolutely cannot put any personal information in there because that data has been sent back to the OpenAI guys. And who knows what they're doing with it.
Yeah. So don't put all your bank account details in there, people.
Yeah, not a good idea.
Keep everything else separate. So where do you see it going from here? You've got it up and running. So how many clinics are using it at the moment?
There are about 30 clinics using it at the moment.
Okay.
So we're still very early days. We had a soft launch, or we had a beta group probably, God, what, 4 or 5 months ago. And we're just coming out of that phase now where we're really happy with the product. So I don't know where we see it going.
I think it's great though. I was excited when Lucia reached out to me about coming on the podcast. I just love it that, like, within podiatry itself, you've got podiatrists with their partners are involved in doing things that 10 years ago we never would have thought about this.
Yeah.
It would just been
Yeah,
crazy.
I think like embracing AI and all other technologies to help with the profession is super important because it really does, like, apart from obviously we have a vested interest in this
Yeah.
specific software, but aside from that, like take all that aside, it actually just makes the quality of podiatrists' lives better. And I think it makes patients' lives better too because they're now spending more time focusing on what they should be focusing on, which is patient care.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's what you say is very true as well. Like it's for me coming from a tech world and then meeting a podiatrist, for better or for worse. It's been a really interesting journey because I'm obviously looking at everything through kind of the lens of technology,
Yeah.
and being able to apply that to the podiatric world has been fantastic.
I think that's where podiatry has changed a lot through, instead of podiatrists just being podiatrists putting blinkers on, you've got podiatrists and yeah, a lot of them are married to other people that got skills that we can actually use in our profession, like your background. So the whole
Yeah.
software engineering is going to be a benefit. I think it's great, especially this note taking, because the amount of podiatrists I know who have left the profession because they say that they were burnt out and note taking was a big part of it. So I
Yeah.
think
I was
if we can
actually,
make this better, then it's gonna keep people in the profession.
yeah, absolutely. I was listening to your podcast, I think it was 209, why the particular podiatrist left podiatry. And I was like, oh
Yeah,
my God, so true. Like it can really, and I have this conversation with Chris all the time, only for his IT expertise. I wouldn't have a website, online booking system, SEO, and it would be really hard. My life as a podiatrist would be very challenging. So yeah, it's class that we get to integrate both
yeah,
So I
and
both
think
skills.
it's one of those things that other podiatrists need to learn from other podiatrists. So I think
Yeah,
anyone who's listening to this, if they're not already using some form of clinic note system or an AI system, where they reach out and talk to you, or if they're going to talk to somebody else. Oh, if somebody wanted to get hold of you, what's the site
the
address,
web
contact
the
details?
website is clinicnotesai.com.
Well, that's a tough one to remember.
Yeah,
Clinicnotesai.com.
yeah,
you-
exactly.
you'll see a picture of me and a video. And then we usually set up a call with Chris, and Chris runs through the whole system, and that's it. We're here for support, or you can check in with us anytime. And do you have anything to add?
Important to say that when we first launched, we didn't do a free trial.
Yeah,
The reason for that was we kind of had a feeling that there was going to be a lot of interest, and we have a very small team. And for at least the first 1,000 clinicians, I want to be really hands-on, and I want to meet with the person and see exactly how they want their notes done and help with that. So we didn't have a free trial, but now we do for an unspecified amount of time. We are offering a free trial, which is 30 days long. So yeah, if people want to try it out, they can. And if they want to book a call with myself or Lucia and have a chat about it, that's no problem either.
okay. And they have to be using Clinico for this to integrate properly?
They do, yeah. So we only integrate with Clinical at the moment.
Yeah,
We do plan to integrate with other softwares in the future, but for now, just Clinical.
yeah. Because I know some other software programs that I have some coaching clients that are using, and they just mentioned something about integrating AI notes with that as well. So yours, so if anyone uses Clinico, doesn't currently have AI notes, then they reach out to you and at least they can give it a free trial. And if it works out, they go, this is great. They keep using it. And if they don't like it, then you can say, why don't you like it? And then get feedback from them and make it better.
Yeah, that's been the way so far.
That's actually another strength between us and our competitors, that we do a monthly subscription and some other note-taking apps, they take a yearly or an annual.
Yeah, so like they're kind of that's one of the things, like the pricing for us, it's a monthly rolling contract because I think because we own a small clinic, we understand like if something's not working out, you don't want to be tied into like a year-long contract or something. Some of the other softwares you have to pay up front for a year. And also, and this is not even part of the sales pitch, but do be careful looking at the other clinic notes, AI note-taking apps that say they integrate with Clinical, because in our experience, or at least in my experience from trying pretty much all of them, a lot of them only partially integrate with it. So that was one thing that I really focused on when we were developing the app, and something that I think makes it different from everything else out there.
Okay. And can you say how much it is, or is it people go talk to you? If you don't want to say it, that's fine. I'm cool with that.
No, we can absolutely say how much it is. So it's €49 per a user per a month if you have between 1 and 5 clinicians. If you have more than 5 clinicians, then it's a flat fee of 249. Then if you've got more than 10 clinicians, chat to me and we'll come up with something.
The amount of time that it would save, because I know that there's some tightwad podiatrists out there. None of them, I don't think any of them listen to this podcast though. It's the other ones we're talking about that they never want to part with money. Yeah, I'm sure if you open up their wallet, moths would come out. They just don't want to part with it. And sometimes it's like a false economy. Sometimes you've got to spend money to save time. And then with that time, you can invest it back in your patients. And then through your patients, you make more money. So it's an investment that will give you a really good return.
Absolutely. And even you're not paying staff to sit and do notes at the end of the day. It really it saves so much for us. And now we have allocated time every week for our podiatrists to do CPD. And a lot of that time I would say, oh, how are you getting on with your CPD? And they're doing their notes.
Yeah.
And that's not what CPD is for. So the app has completely eliminated all of that. And sometimes I say, go get a coffee. Your notes are done. You have your CPD done. It's amazing.
I've heard people who have actually said to me that they block out a certain amount of time per day, every day, for their clinicians to catch up with their notes.
Yeah, and that's surprisingly.
And that adds up.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of people will have a half hour at the end of every day where they do their notes, and like if that's 5 days a week, that's 2.5 hours a week. That's a work day in the month.
It's really funny. So I think back. So I sold my clinic 8 years ago. But even when I was seeing patients, maybe my notes were just really bad, but I never left the room until my notes were completed.
Yeah.
And I always ran on time. I just had this knack of being able to type and talk, write and talk. But in hindsight, probably my notes were crap.
Yeah,
probably. They probably were. They probably made sense to me. But I used to use a lot of abbreviations, which meant certain things that could speed up the process. But so out of curiosity, could somebody use the AI notes? I assume they would. Just like you said, they do their continuing education. They could be reading something and they could get recording at the same time and then say, hey, give me a summary of what I've just read, just like you would do with chat, I suppose.
Yeah, you can. It's not something that I've seen done with it, but you definitely could.
What about clinic meetings? If you had a clinic meeting and you had your whole team there and you did a clinic meeting, had this thing recording, it could say, give us a summary of our clinic meeting today, and then it gets handed out to everybody as well.
Ooh,
yeah,
you like that?
It could be done. Yeah, and that's probably a feature in itself to do it properly. But yeah, you could do it as it exists. It also will create referral letters for you. So based on your treatment, it'll kind of best guess at a referral letter. And then you can tell it will just put in kind of default sender's name and receiver's name. And you can then tell it, like, write this referral for Chris to Dr. Murphy for an MRI. And then it will take all the details of your treatment and then put in the details that you've asked to add.
Yeah, so I think any time that there's with a patient, with a staff member or anything, like you could actually use it in multiple ways. You could be doing a performance review with a staff member.
Yeah.
You could have it recording at the same time. Same thing. You have a copy, they have a copy. So it can be used in so many different ways.
Yeah, it really can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
From
And I
having
think
an argument, if you're having an argument with your partner, you just turn it on the computer at the same
Yeah,
We
time.
never argue that. That's never
AI,
happened.
tell me who's right.
And at the end, you go, who was right in this particular argument discussion?
Yeah. Funny, AI would always be choosing me, but anyway.
Yeah, I think some podiatrists, I think all the younger podiatrists coming through are going to just embrace the Clinic Notes AI. They're really going to embrace it. And I think the ones that have been out for a certain period of time, there's going to be a split group that will, and there'll be a split group that won't. And then some of your older, crusty ones who are so set in the way, still doing a plaster cast, sending off to a lab, wait 2 weeks.
Yeah.
These people have not changed and adapt just on how they get orthotics onto a patient's foot, who are still doing everything the old way, probably won't take this on. They've still probably got the little cards that they write on the paper files and filing them away that way. That they probably won't change. But that doesn't matter because they're not going to be around long term. It's the newer ones coming through.
Yeah.
Although I've had a few calls with a few podiatrists that have jumped straight from, well, two in particular, that have jumped straight from paper notes to using Clinic Notes AI integrated with clinical. And I was super impressed.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
But I was just super impressed. And they've really taken to it and use it all the time. And yeah, that was really encouraging to see that someone, what this one person in particular had said to me was that they hadn't really seen the benefit in using Clinical for their notes until the AI stuff came in, because then they were like, oh, now I actually don't have to write notes at all.
Yeah, well, even for me, right up until selling my clinic, my initial consultation, I still handwrote things, but the sheet that I had a lot of diagrams on it. So I love doing drawings because drawings just made sense to me on when a patient had a certain problem. But if I had a clinic now, no, I would have Clinic Notes AI. I don't want to have to sit there having to type notes. If something can make my life easier, I'd pay the money to actually do it because I know the benefit that you get at the back end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so one more time before we wrap up, just let people know that if they want more information, go to clinicnotesai.com. All the information will be there. I think it's fantastic what you guys are doing, and I can't wait to see how it develops over a period of time. And if I'm ever in Ireland, we can have a Guinness.
Absolutely. We can split the G. Have you done that before?
Do what?
Split the G.
What is split the G?
Oh, I'm going to leave that as a wee challenge for us to complete when we see each other.
Oh, geez. Okay.
It's not as dangerous as it can.
It sounds really bizarre. If I Google it, will I find out what split the G is?
I would say so, yeah. It takes years of practice to get it right.
Years of practice. I think we've mastered it. As much as Clinic Notes AI, we've mastered splitting the G as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to Google that, and I may need to practice before I get there. So, Lucia and Chris, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast, talking about what you've developed, how it's going to help the podiatry profession. And so thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us, Dyson. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to Lucia and Chris today from Clinic Notes AI. And I think this is really interesting. I think it's fantastic that people in podiatry are doing this. And there's a couple of key points that I really took away from this conversation. And the first one is really about, I think it's important that we have some form of streamlining when our notes are being put together so that everybody in your team can easily follow what the other person has done. And I think that is an absolute game changer. The other point to take away from this as well is this particular program has been designed specifically for podiatrists by a podiatrist. And I think that is really important. And if you're using Clinico, it just works with it seamlessly, which is fantastic. And the final point I take away from this, just with AI and Clinic Notes in general, is that it really reduces the administrative burden on the podiatrist, which means it enables the podiatrist to be more present with their patients, that they can actually listen more intently. And I think that's going to be better for the podiatrist, for the patient, and for the podiatry business. And just remember, as I said earlier on, that if you want to have a 30-day free trial and then 50% off for the next 2 months after that, go to clinicnotesai.com/legends and all the information is there. I've actually got all this in the show notes as well. So that's it from me this week. I want you to look after yourself, look after your family, and I'll talk to you again next week. Bye for now.